the second webinar in this series from the EasySpeak Help Desk. This is Coach Carol speaking, and we have lots of friends with us tonight from various parts of the world. We've just done a little bit of a check-in here, and I'm currently in Victoria, Australia, and I'm in clubs in both District 73 and 70. Marietta is in District 69 in Queensland. Lucy is in District 20, Jordan. Gwen is in District 60 and 86, Toronto, Canada. Peter is in District 95 in Finland. And Kevin is in New Zealand. And we have Laura in District 90 in Sydney. And Kevin is saying he's also a member of quite a few clubs in District 73. And Kevin and I do know each other. I wanted to put on this slide a little reminder for you, if you wouldn't mind just taking a note of that. If you've got any queries that you want covered by me individually, feel free to email me on that particular line, easyspeakchampion@gmail.com. Tonight we've got quite a bit in store for you, but I wanted to preface that with some of the work that I've been doing recently to upgrade the current EasySpeak Made Easy course. I was talking with Malcolm Warden a week or so ago, and he was saying that the frequently asked questions come from new users of EasySpeak, and they're looking for easy tools. So I've put together a few things that I've called the Module 1 Learner License in the online course. And I have a copy of all of those links that I've put in that slide for you. I'm just copying them again and pasting them in. And you should be able to see them in the chat pod. They're kind of all garbled together now. That's a bit, doesn't look too good that way, does it? Never mind. The other thing that I wanted to let you all know is that my slides are already uploaded to my SlideShare account. And I'll give you a link to that at the end. Tonight's webinar is all about the control panel, and I wanted to focus in on the lower part of the control panel, as you see here on this slide. It's just physically impossible to cover everything, and the import tools are a little more difficult to manage, so I've left them for a future webinar. Most new users of EasySpeak want to know straight away, well, what is a control panel and who has access to it? Quite often we see at the beginning of the new year where people are in a new role of VPE and they're not quite sure where the control panel is. So these are the frequently asked questions. And the last two was what we're going to cover today is how do you access the control panel and what do you do in the control panel? And I'm really happy for you to interact and to add your questions into the text chat area. And others can keep their eye on that. Just remind me if there's some questions that I might have missed. The screen images that I'm using for demonstration tonight are from the King Arthur's Playground. Most of you will have heard of that, I hope. And you can access that if you're wanting to practice the use of control panel, as I have been doing in the character of Minnie Mouse. Now that's a bit small for you to read in detail, but that screen image is showing what the control panel looks like when I enter the King Arthur's Playground control panel. And a very interesting question was put forward by Marietta earlier this evening, and I thought it worthwhile to just ask, to reiterate the question here because of what we're seeing. She asks why, when we first get into the control panel, are we seeing the forum statistics, and who is online. And for me, I pondered that question when I first started using it, but now I'm quite used to it. And what you see in the forum statistics are actually the numbers of clubs and users of EasySpeak across the world. And the lower section will tell you who else is currently online. Now, if you're a driver of many different EasySpeak sites, then that might get a little busy. When you're in the King Arthur's playground, you'll see it in a similar way to what I'm showing here. I thought the first thing for us to do would be to have a look at some of the most frequently visited sections of the control panel and work our way through some of the others. I hope that will be all right with you. The first thing that I'm going to cover is manage the meeting roles, and the second will be manage the club officer roles. So here's where we can get into some of the detail about what you see in Control Panel and what the options are for. So the first thing is meeting roles. In this part of the Control Panel is where you will answer the first set of questions for yourself. Because you need to have in mind what it is you want to display and what you want it to do functionally when you are operating your EasySpeak site. So the meeting roles are the drivers of the meeting agenda. Which ones do you want to have in your agenda? And how will you like those meeting roles to be displayed? There are many ways you can change the number of meeting roles. You can edit them and you can add new ones. So let me find out in the text chat from you now, what are some of the newer roles that you have put into your meeting roles in Control Panel? And whilst you're thinking about that and typing it in, you'll notice there are a couple of strange ones in this list from the King Arthur's Playground. There is a role called the videographer. Now you might have something similar to that, where you have a person with a video camera whose job it is to record some of the speeches live. You may also have something like a soapbox that Marietta has put in. You may also have a person who is a warm-up person, someone who meets and greets, like uh, a hospital. Have someone who is in charge of bringing the supper, and that could also be listed as your meeting role. Laura is suggesting that we have a person who's to give a vote of thanks. And in some clubs, as Marietta is pointing out, you might have a round robin master who might be different. Well, it could be a different person doing that role from the Toastmaster. The important things to do whilst you're in this meeting role panel is to decide whether or not they will be assignable and will they be fillable. Now the fillable part would depend on how independent you want your members to be. If you are using your EasySpeak site without interaction from your members, you might not have them fillable because you might simply assign everything. But when you have a fully interactive group of your members in your EasySpeak site, they'll want to fill in which ones they want. So that particular option becomes really important. And Henry has just joined us on a mobile device. Hi, Henry. The other things to keep in mind is whether or not you want the meeting roles to repeat. Some can and some shouldn't. You normally only ever have Toastmaster. But it's possible to put in an auxiliary role like the one you can just see on the third top of the list there, the auxiliary general evaluator. And the last thing to consider is whether or not you want these roles to be auto-assigned. Now that refers to the auto-assignment option that you have on any agenda. So let's see if there's any questions about the meeting roles. If you want to ask a question in voice, I'll get you to use the little smiley face set of icons and use the raise your hand. I'll just put mine in place so you can see what it looks like. And then I will bring you to the microphone. If not, we can move on. So the question I imagine that was in your head was, how do I edit a meeting role? And when you click on the edit icon for any of them, there's a pop-up window similar to this one. So in this case, I'm editing the role in King Arthur's Playground called the R counter. There is already a role name, but there's no abbreviation for it yet, so I might like to add that. If you want that person playing the role to be able to quickly go to the knowledge base, then add the link for that. Good question, Peter. Let me go back. So I'm just not sure if I've got it showing. No, I didn't include the whole panel. But to the right of each of these role names, there is an edit icon. Other things you might put in place here would be the answers yes or no to some of the options. And then, of course, once you've got it all in place, you would save the changes. Excellent, Peter. All right, let's move on. The second thing to do in the control panel is to look at the club officer roles. Here's something else that you might tell me when you're using the text chat is, do you have extra roles? You can see here that we have an assistant VPE and an assistant secretary, and we have a court jester and a webmaster. We're finding at the online clubs that it's really, really useful to have assistants everything because it becomes so busy. And a blog author, says Laura. Wonderful. So to the right of each of these in the control panel would also be an edit icon, and you would use the edit to either give extra permissions or reduce the number of permissions that they have. And there are lots of permissions, and I think I've got a slide for that coming up next. You might also use this screen to add a new club officer role. Right, so here's a little glimpse of some of the options when you are inside the editing of a particular club officer role. So on the left, I've given you an example of what it might look like for the permissions for an assistant VPE. So in this case, I've determined that they would not have club control panel access or create the meeting dates and times, but they can do nearly everything else. They can edit the agenda, assign members, assign speeches, send a meeting email, and update the meeting with actuals. But you might not want them yet to update the meeting templates or send emails to all club members. They may be just in learning mode. So the best way to deal with these permission settings is to think about the level of expertise of the person in that role. The little picture above, which says Officer Settings, is on the top of each one. So it'll always ask you which club, which office, what is the officer abbreviation, and so on. All right with that? Any questions? Just put them in the text chat. Now, one of the things that I thought I might do before I go into this one is to have you do a little activity, something to make sure that you are awake. And good evening to Julie. I have a couple of activities here for you, and I would like you to try and do the first one, which means that you'll be multitasking. I want you to open up a separate browser window, go to easyspeak.org, or if you're in Europe, your easyspeak.tm, and locate the knowledge base article about the control panel. Now, it could be any one of those. There's quite a few. So just focus on doing that one task for now, and we'll come back to the second one later. So in order to do that, you'd need to know where the knowledge base articles are on the EasySpeak site. In the text chat, who can tell me where to find that? Henry, tell me, are you a user of easyspeak.org or are you in the European server? That will help answer that question for you. TM Club EU is the one I meant, yes. I didn't quite have the words correct. And yes, Laura and Henry and Marietta, all correct. Under the help options is where you would look. So go to there, have a look in the knowledge map for the control panel articles, copy the URL and paste it in the chat pod below. Now, not everyone will want to do that, so I'm going to come back to the slides and carry on. Oh, Laura wins first prize. She's got the first one in place. Well done. These links to the knowledge base articles, are really handy. So don't forget to add those to your list of helpful things that you give to others. Right, now here's a nice simple tool in the control panel called the Location Manager. Can you tell me in the text chat if you have more than one location for your club meetings? So you might say, yes, only one, or yes, many. Excellent. So Kevin, how many different venues might you have in your control panel location manager? And Henry is saying yes as well. So Kevin has 2 regular locations, and we'll wait and find out what Henry has to say. And whilst you're thinking about that, I thought it worthwhile mentioning for those who are running online clubs, such as Julie. Is Julie still in the audience? Not sure I can see Julie still, but Julie runs the Witty Storytellers, and they use an online internet meeting location. And that one is quite important now to add into your location manager in the control panel. So here in King Arthur's, we've got the round table virtual meeting room. And it looks something like this. When we go to edit the location of that. So we give it the name, the King Arthur Virtual Roundtable, and we'll assume in this instance that we're using GoToMeeting. So in the virtual location panel at the bottom, we put in the root of that GoToMeeting link. So it should read global.gotomeeting.com/join. And for those in the online clubs, that becomes very, very important as to what then shows on their agendas. I like that answer you've given me, Henry. Irregular locations like Sunday speechathons. This means that you're thinking ahead to how you would notify people of where they're going for those special events. Some clubs also have their meetings off-site. They might go into aged care facilities or to a school or to a corporate organization, and they might need to tell people where that new address is. So just like Henry is suggesting, you would put that into your location manager. Any more suggestions on locations or questions about that? And we only had one multitasker who managed to find an article in the knowledge base. Well done, Laura. A few people typing in. Just having trouble getting that tiny little icon to move. Henry's asking a really important question about where is the location manager. Let me go back to a slide that shows you the panel itself, and I can best do that with this slide here. And you'll see the third one down is called the locations edit. So that's where you go to get to the locations manager. Henry, if you have the right permissions, you should see your control panel at the very bottom of any screen in your site. Marietta, the articles you were looking for was anything to do with control panel. So keep searching. And Laura has a question about a role. She's made roles for the president, VP, SA, etc. And the president for the open close business session report, etc. Should I be doing this? It means that these people get multiple role requests each week. I'm going to throw that question. Let me see who I can pick on. Henry. Let me move Henry up into the presenter panel so that he can have his voice. And let's see if you could answer Laura's question about the different roles that she's put in place there. And meanwhile, I'll move back to my panel that we were up to. Are you there, Henry? Start your audio. Not hearing you yet, Henry, no.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes, can hear you now.
Can you hear me? Fantastic.
Yes.
So yes, we did have, in answer to Laura's question, we did have situations where we had, similar to you, Laura, with a president, an SA, a VP, and a VPM, and they would do several roles. And so they did get different notifications when you send an email at the end of to announce a meeting. You basically tell people what their role is, and you have to run that a couple of times, but people will get a number of notifications saying that they are VPM and evaluator or some other thing. Does that answer your question, Laura?
Fabulous. Thank you so much, Henry. That was a good answer. Stay where you are. I might have more for you.
No problem.
Thanks. So I'll move on to my next slide now. And let's look at the next thing to do in our control panel, which is the biggest of those tasks. There are several pieces to it. So when you first click into the club setup from the club panel, you will be faced with the unit administration for that particular site. Now, if you administer several club sites, then they'll all show up in this panel. But when you're in the King Arthur's playground, you'll just see the one, which makes it nice and simple. So here you would then select the club setup option for that club. So I imagine that I'm now clicking on the King Arthur's Playground edit button, which is at the right-hand side. And that will take us to a set of panels or tabs inside the club control panel. In the text chat, can you tell me if you've been into this one before and how have you found it to be? So just a little bit of feedback on its complexity, because I find that this is often the most complex area, and those questions frequently asked come from this. Thank you for your candor. Thank you, Peter. So in the first panel called General, this is where you would put in your information about the club name and perhaps a short name. You would have the address for the admin's email and any links to your club website, which might be a separate free toast host site or a WordPress site. And you might also put in a link to your social media, which could well be a Facebook group or page. And then you are asked to put in a subdomain. Oh, you're with me, Henry, on the lectern, so everything you do is seen by everybody. And you would put in the subdomain to make the actual site link easy to remember and easy to click. So in this case, it would be kingarthurs.districtwebmasters.org. And note the different server here. It's not on easyspeak.org or TM Club EU. It's quite separate. And thanks, Kevin, for answering that question from Henry Scullion about the King Arthur's Club. So if someone can type in the address there of King Arthur's, if you've already been there. I think, Marietta, you were there earlier this evening. And I will continue. So it's kingarthurs.districtwebmaster. Wonderful. Gwyn, first in, best dressed. Well done. And Marietta is there as well. Thank you so much for your teamwork. The next panel in the club setup is called Display. Yeah, we'll get to that one, Gwyn. We'll give you the logins and everything in just a moment. It's good to see that we've got some multitaskers out there. So in the display panel is where you would change the language and the time zone for your club. A very important feature for the online clubs, because they will have people from all over the place, all over the world, and they need to know which time zone this club is set up in so that they can make the adjustments. The date format is also of your choice here, whichever works best for you in terms of whether it's the number, then the month, then the year. I know different countries have different ways of having their date formatted. The privacy preferences are also useful here. So you might want to ensure that certain things are not seen by people who just visit your site. And that could include the charts for your members or even the members' pictures in their profiles, etc. So you make the choice here as to how private you keep some of those functions. Excellent, Marietta. There's one of the characters you could get a start on. The other thing you can do here is decide whether or not you want the members' awards to be showing on the user list. Some clubs do and some clubs don't. There's another question for you, Henry. What have you seen in the past with some of the clubs you've helped? Do they display their club member awards?
So a lot of them do display the club member awards. Typically, the club
Yes.
member awards will be shown on the agenda when it's printed as to what level people have reached. So we see a lot of that happening.
Yeah, I like to see that, but some clubs have decided not to for whatever reasons. And the option that you need to use here is yes or no, right there in the display tab of the club setup. So let's move on and have a look at the options tab. This can be quite busy and kind of complex to get your head around initially, but we'll have a go at explaining it here tonight. And yes, Marietta, we are talking about awards such as Advanced Communicator Gold and so on. Well, there's a good reason why not to have it. Thank you, Julie. It might be a little daunting for many whom are new members and then not show the awards of the existing members. Here in the Options tab, you can change optional modules and stats calculation dates. In the first section, I like to be able to switch on the Outstanding Toastmaster option. This is really useful as a method of calculating annual awards. Each meeting we might have the best speaker, the best table topics, or the best evaluator. And we sometimes have best of meeting for any role. And when you close the agenda after the meeting has finished, you would add in those who have been given those awards, and they're automatically added into the Outstanding Toastmaster section. Can I find out from those in the audience who uses that and whether you found it valuable or not? I think I might pick on someone else now. How about Kevin? You knew I was going to choose you, didn't you? Let me bring you up to presenter and make sure you've got your voice on. And tell me a little bit about how you might use Outstanding Toastmaster feature. Just waiting for the audio to activate for Kevin. And of course, everyone else, you can text in what you do with your meeting awards. Yeah, initially, Laura, it's a bit complex until you look behind some of the things in the Outstanding Toastmaster.
Sorry, it had a million and one. You have to accept this to enable my audio.
Yep, go ahead, Kevin, we hear you.
So most of the clubs that I'm a part of don't do the best speaker. We just do best evaluator and best table topics. And it's a very good way of tracking what people have physically achieved. So being able to have that whole record of accomplishment is very much an incentive for people to actually see the extra part before you close the meeting down.
Excellent. Thank you, Kevin. As I am getting a little feedback, I'll just switch your voice off for the moment. Thank you for your comments. So Gwen is saying they have Best Evaluator and Best Speaker. Also Best Table Topics and a Kit Kat Award. I'd really like to know about a Kit Kat Award, please, Gwen. Can I pick on you next and bring you up into the presenter area? Make sure you've got your audio on. And ask you, what is a Kit Kat Award and how can I get one? No audio? Oh, that is disappointing. However, why not tell us in the text chat area? And thanks, Marietta, in relation to your answer back to Peter that the Outstanding Toastmaster Award is an annual award based on the year's effort. Some people use the Easy Speak Outstanding Toastmaster Award as a basis for doing that. Do go and have a look sometime, because when you look behind the Outstanding Toastmaster Award in your club, you'll see that you can add extra things that don't necessarily have anything to do with the meeting role. It could be things they've done outside the club. The other things that you can do on the options tab include whether or not you open up a membership survey. We've had a few questions about that in the community of late, and some people are investigating how the membership trophy can be used, the membership survey can be used to find out what the members want or what they feel about the club. So I'm just looking back now at Gwen's answer that there's a travelling trophy with 2 mini Kit Kats for the person who does a good job at the meeting. I like that. That's wonderful. I'm not sure how it will equate into an Easy Meeting award. However, it's worthwhile experiencing that. Easy Speak Kickoff. Lucy, that sounds really interesting too. I'll bring you up into the presenter area. Have you got your microphone with you, Lucy? And can you tell us about your kickoff? So just waiting for Lucy's voice to activate. And looking again now at what else Gwen is doing is that sometimes the Kit Kat trophy is substituted by the pack of Smarties. All good incentives. We like getting something for free. Lucy, tell us more about your Easy Speak kickoff. No, didn't switch on. I'll try that again for you. Now, there's a nice one from Marietta, a Bright Spark Award. A flash of bright spark during the evening. And you have an actual trophy, which is a spark plug on a stand. Now, that's really clever. That's an Aussie thing, yeah? All right, so Lucy's saying that she's using Easy Speak in District 59 and getting things started. Excellent. All right, let's move on because there's lots of things to discuss here, and I'm trying just to give a taster for each thing. Right, Lucy, it looks like your challenge is on. So in the options tab, you can also have a look at the new visitors chart, the photo gallery, and any stats for the way you want to calculate the dates for things like the first meeting available or the user statistics and so on. So lots of things to explore there. Let's move on and have a look at the last part here of role allocations. This is a very busy tab. It's got quite a long section of options. So I've cut them up into 3 pieces here. And some of the things that you might want to use it for are things like, when do I want to make the agenda visible? Will it be one day before, 7 days before, or 28 days before? And answers to those questions will depend on how much effort is put into scheduling your meetings in advance. The other thing that you might want to consider is whether to prevent online user changes before a certain time. So I'd be interested to hear from people either in voice or in the text chat about what they do with those two things in particular. Marietta is asking, must the agenda be visible? Yes. And in answer to Henry, yes, you certainly can say something about this. Go ahead, Henry, whenever that voice activates for you.
No problem. Thank you, Carol. Just on this one, meetings have to be visible for people to basically be allocated roles. And in some clubs, the VP does all the work and those roles, and that's perfectly all right. And so by default, I think it's just 14 days or so before the next meeting, if the meetings are fortnightly. What we have found with the clubs that I ran last year, I ran 2 clubs as VP, and I opened up those meetings to be visible 56 days ahead. And the reason I was using that is because I believe that it's not the VP's role to get people to develop personally, right? Personal development is that, it's personal, it's everybody's responsibility. And so by making the meetings visible, it meant that they could actually go ahead and select roles up to 56 days in the future. And that was really good for them to look at where they are at with their CL manual and to select the roles, sign up for those meetings.
Excellent, Henry. I'm just trying to paraphrase that in the text chat because I believe, like you do, that by using some of these tools smartly, you are actually prompting more of that self-direction by the members. All right, Julie is saying only the speaker's roles are not open to all. This is true that the speaker roles are scheduled. They must be, excuse my throat, the speaker roles must be first requested by the member and then scheduled by the VPE. The last little section there is about the email and notification settings, and this is where you would decide who to send the speech details to, for example. So when there is a speech request and there's been a scheduled speech, then that detail could be sent to the person with the objectives. And I think there is also an option there for who else should get that. Just excuse my throat, I'm going to take a drink. Whilst I'm doing that, Henry, add anything else that you want to.
I love being put on the spot there. Thanks, Carol. Anything else on the email and notification settings, I guess? So the idea of that is to basically let people know what's actually, so for example, if you have a newbie who just started at a club, they probably have a mentor, and one would hope they would have mentors, and you would want the mentor whenever an email is sent out to get notification that their mentee is doing something. You also want the various other officers to possibly be aware of what's actually happening in the club without having to look at the detail of the agenda all the time. So I think that notification area is actually really, really important.
Thank you, Henry. And sorry to push you off the stage there, Lucy, but I know you were practicing your newfound presentation skills, but everything you do is seen by us. So, um, excuse me for taking control. All right, before we move to the next segment that I wanted to present to you tonight, I have another little activity for you. And for this one, once again, you need to multitask and you would need to open up your Facebook social media site, find your way to the Easy Speak Toastmaster community, and find one of the latest pieces of learning resource that I've been creating. It's called a quick sheet. Oh, no. Okay, we lost that one. Never mind. All sorts of strange things happen when you have multiple presenters. The task is to find, Kevin, you're very smart. You may find either version that I have uploaded recently. Well done, Henry. You found the right area. And under the files, you will find the latest of these things that I've called quick sheets. And I focused that one on the use of control panel. So that was just to break up the activity here and make sure you're all still awake. Let's move on. The next tab in the club setup is called Meetings, and it's here where you set your default location, amongst other things. And remember, we were talking about the location manager before, and if you have more than one location, you would need to make sure which one is your default location, and you would select it here. Thanks, Laura. That's good. And you would also put in place here the date and time, or the day and time that your meeting normally is scheduled for, and on which weeks of each month, etc. So very simple pieces of information in that panel. And further down on that panel, you'll find all kinds of agenda preferences for your meetings. Too many to go into detail here and too small to read. Well, one of the things that I wanted to highlight for you today was that here is where you can put in your important details that you want to show on all agendas. And it could be that perhaps you're wanting to prompt your members to please bring along your manuals to each meeting. Some clubs find that people forget. So having that written directly onto the agenda is a prompt for them each time you send out your reminder emails. And here is where you put it in place. Laura's asking, what's the best print agenda using the format option? In one of those options there are different little agenda templates. They're very basic ones. I tend not to use them myself. I've created several for different clubs that I'm a member of. But you could experiment in King Arthur's Playground, for example, in setting one of those templates and then creating a new meeting and having a look at what that has done to the agenda. I advise doing that sort of thing in the practice area rather than your own club. Yeah, absolutely. A lot of headaches. So practice somewhere safe before you do that one. And Henry has finally found the club control panel. Well done. This is a bit like a discovery, or a bit like, what are they calling that new thing? The Pokemon Go. Anyway, we've had our own Easy Speak Go here tonight. Borrowing templates. Look, that is a question that I'm asked frequently, and I don't know how to transfer a template from one Easy Speak site to another. But let's ask our other experts. Henry or Kevin, would you like to answer that question?
You're wonderful, Carol. Um, It is, you can't actually borrow other templates from other clubs. You can actually put in a request to Malcolm or to Kit to introduce some of those templates, but ultimately they're not very difficult to create. As a general rule, your club will come with a set number of agenda, and those agenda can easily be modified. Once you've modified them, they tend to stay the same for ongoing. And I think in our clubs we had a dozen of them, a dozen templates according to either contest, to changeover dinner, to Christmas meetings, speechathons, and from that those were all created from previous ones. So it's a cut and paste kind of approach.
Yeah, thank you. I kind of thought it was, and it's a pity that we can't transfer them. And it looks like Kevin has followed that process that you were describing, Henry. Julie, I think it is best that you try your own for different occasions. You'll find that you quickly build up your set of templates to maybe 15 or so, and you might have one for certain contests, you might have another for a dinner meeting, you might have one that has maybe 2 speakers and an educational, maybe one that has all speeches, like you had today in your storytellers meeting. And Gwen's saying you've requested a template when the clubs were set up. Yeah. And throughout your use of Easy Speak, you'll find as you learn and you realize what you can do, that you'll probably request even more. Yes, creating them from scratch is probably what we all do, but very quickly you learn to make sure that you save that one as a template with a specific name that means something to other users later on. So good work, everyone, on those agenda preferences. Finally, meetings and permissions includes things like who has editing, assigning, and follow-up permissions. So you might want to explore that. For example, the meeting manager, who you might want to delegate some of those roles to. And there's all sorts of parameters around that. Some people make sure that meeting manager is always the Toastmaster, or should that be the other way around? Toastmaster is always the meeting manager. And then you assign particular tasks for them to do. The follow-up permissions, Julie, refer to what you do when the meeting agenda is closed at the completion of your meeting. And you need to put in place the follow-up things like who actually attended, who did not, and whether there were any awards. Sometimes you also need to include what was the word of the day if it was a secret up until the meeting time. So lots of things to do before you close the meeting. And the final little tab is the TMI information, a very simple little tab. And in this one, I've just highlighted who to contact. So for example, on the front page or home page, you would have the choice of whose name and what details are appearing for the contact. And the home page is a very important part of your site, as many of us know. Right, with 5 minutes to, I'll just briefly touch on this one about things to do about your meeting awards, as we were talking a little bit about those earlier. And you can do those in the meeting awards part of your control panel. So it's not in club setup, it's a separate area. So you can add meeting awards, customize the ones you've got, prioritize them, and each one of them will be viewed on the agenda when your meeting is closed. Not all clubs have these. Some of the none of the online clubs that I've been working with at the moment have those, so it'd be interesting to see if they want to experiment there. All right, I'll stop at this point just to see if there's some questions that may not yet have been covered. So put them in the text chat now. There's something about the control panel that I haven't covered today. I'll just flick to the next slide just to see what I had planned to do. Well, that's how you add an award. And yes, I've highlighted that at the bottom of that particular tab is an explanation of what it means to convert the roles. And I've not used that before. Have you used that one at all, Henry? Do you want to give us an explanation or caution about its use?
No, I can't say that we've actually used the awards. In both clubs where I was VP, we didn't use awards for club roles. But what we do use awards for was to nominate who came first, second, and third at the contests. So actually a very simple use of the awards and no real customization. That's probably one area to experiment in.
Yeah, that's a good idea. I like that. Thanks, Henry. All right, I'm going to skip a couple of slides and move all the way down here to my last one. The member status. And here is where you can decide on the different types or categories of members in your club. And there might be regular members, they might be charter members, they might be prospective members, or they could be a visitor, a guest, a past member, or simply on the mailing list. Quite often you can use some of these categories to help your VPM manage the lists. I too like the prospective member status. We've used that quite frequently in the online clubs because we do get many visitors and we have a rule in most of them that they must visit twice. But at least if they do come back, then we can put them as a prospective member. And we've given permissions to that particular role or prospective member, in actual fact, to take on a meeting role. So it works in two ways. So lots and lots of things to do in the control panel. It is such an important engine from which you drive your EasySpeak site. So I do hope that you found something useful from tonight and that you will go away with renewed confidence in being able to use it for your club. I would like to say a big thank you for those who attended tonight and attended the first one. And I wanted to tell you that in consultation with Malcolm, he's really keen for us to continue on a monthly basis to have webinars about EasySpeak. So I'm in the process of planning one for each month for August, September, October, and November of this year. So if you're a presenter and you would like to help me out with any of these, please get in touch. Just use my easyspeakchampion@gmail.com. And let's see if there's any final comments. I see quite a lot of thank yous coming in. Thank you so much for your votes of confidence in what I do. And thank you everybody for joining me tonight for the second webinar. At this point, I'm going to close the recording, but stay on if you wanted to chat informally. Bye for now.